Will gaming terms now be uniform across the rules to prevent confusion? I give examples like how people kept saying trenches and duckboards, how there were multiple instances in the rules where they talked about to capture an objective versus to hold it, and when those were considered, which created massive confusion in the game. And things like grids and spaces, you know, just making sure that gaming terms are uniform across the rulebook to cut down on confusion and FAQs later on. His answer to this was, some game terms are changing, such as duckboard is now trench. It's not the end of the world. Everyone called them trenches anyways. And trenches does fit a more World War I feel and style. Steamforged Games, just make sure to add in your rulebook that yes, vehicles can enter trenches. Because you're going to get that. And it was a lot easier to explain that duckboards do not equal trenches. So duckboards are, you know, what they are in historical context is important. And that's why vehicles can go on them, jump over them, whatever the situation may be. Just make sure that's in there, or you're going to get a ton of FAQs of us going, yes, yes, vehicles can enter trenches. Just keep that in mind. I was really hoping that trenches were a new form of scenery, I think is what he's been calling it, but a new terrain element on the board. But they're just changing duckboards to mean trenches. On the plus side, all the people who did 3D tile stuff and made the duckboards trenches, this is now better for you, because it's actually official now and they'll be called trenches. Are the old scenarios returning to the base rulebook now as pitch battles, or will there be an all-new collection of scenarios to better represent the new tiles and designs you are implementing? And he said, the older style of scenario is now referred to as pitch battle. I'm sure some of them will feel familiar, but they won't be exactly the same due to the new combination of tile shapes. It's safe to say that if you like any of the very specific scenarios that you have in your base set from the base rulebook, or with the Blitzkrieg box, they had the Blitzkrieg campaign with a whole bunch of set of scenarios. If you like those, keep them around. You might still need them to reproduce in this. There will be new scenarios and new game modes, which we expected new stuff for the new game modes. But it doesn't sound like they tried very hard to include one-for-ones, bring over any old scenarios that were good for demos or anything. It sounds like they're really trying to make use of all the new stuff they're bringing. So all the stuff included in the base game will use some form of customization, custom tiles, different things. So a lot of things will feel the same, but will look different and will basically be different, probably with new names and stuff, which is fine. New game, who dis? I have a question basically asking about the landing craft, the landing boat, the like Higgins boat that was included in one of the scenarios, and the glider included in another scenario that were printed in like paper that you were encouraged to use. The answer is there aren't currently any plans to include these game pieces that you're describing. So no, they're not returning. They will still be homebrew or old game if you did that. I was really hoping we were going to get official cardboard pieces of those because everyone wants landing boats. Everyone loves landing boats. But apparently landing boats and stuff is not something that they're looking into for this. I said a big one that keeps coming up, will you be keeping historical influence of World War I? Are you trying to genericize the game for updates and designs? He went on, as we read earlier, the game has a fantastic mixture of historical and fantasy and dieselpunk inspired in it already, and we fully intend to maintain this mixture. A big one that'll be covered several times, we covered at the beginning, Kickstarter is 10 days, and upgrade tiers will be covered in another video. From them, that'll be coming out later. I also asked them about the new campaign that they are talking about releasing. He said, yes, we're designing a new narrative campaign that with its own scenarios as well as a standalone single session scenarios. So there will be a campaign. It will have a narrative story. My thought is it'll probably include the Nemoans. because again, Reloaded is pushing the Nemoans. But now that we know about them being Kickstarter exclusive, I hope that the base set their campaign will not be completely based on the Nemoans. It does sound like the Nemoans will be getting their own rule book with rules about their new stuff they bring to the table, which would make perfect sense for them to also have a Nemoan campaign, which is their introduction to each side and how that's going to be handled. So I think that will be a cool thing. Maybe we're getting 2 campaigns. It would be very weird for them to have a base set. The campaign relies heavily on the Nemoan faction, when the Nemoan faction will be Kickstarter exclusive. So we'll have to wait and see. And finally, after all this time, I covered everything on the Facebook. I know there's more. There's a lot more. I'm sorry. So let's very quickly hop over to the Board Game Geek Forums. And this is where Decar has been, who is a big member of the community, and he was like me. He put everything he possibly could. This one is also a little bit more open-ended. The Facebook was very clear in several posts that they were focusing on backwards compatibility in those ones. In this one, he was like, ask me anything. So we did. We asked him anything that we could think of. So let's jump on Decar. To help speed up the section, this video is getting very long. If you made it this far, thank you. But this video is getting very long, and I understand that, and I'm sorry. So I'm going to not do question and answer. I'm going to read his answers. If it's too confusing, or if it's like I have no idea what this answer is for, I will paraphrase what the question was about so that the answer makes more sense. That's what we're going to do rushing forward. I'm sorry, Decar, that these are for your questions, but I really have to wrap this up so I can record it and get it out there as quickly as possible. I will also go to the Board Game Geek Forums down below and see the AMA. There was a nice variety of just personal questions and things about like what influences his design choices. Things like, hey, what's your favorite war movie? What kind of games do you play? What are these? What is that? Cool discussion. A lot of cool answers. Thank you, Jamie, for answering those. Thank you for Decar for asking them. I love them. Probably not what you came for this video for. So we're gonna just skip those. We're gonna do game stuff, game news. So let's jump. Jamie's answers to questions. I think they'll be self-explanatory, but we'll do it. We've been developing 8 scenarios, including a campaign and single session play. Game development isn't entirely complete yet. It's also worth mentioning that we intentionally take games to Kickstarter around 90 to 95% complete to give us room for small changes afterwards and to take community feedback into account. Fog of War isn't hugely necessary in the newer style of scenarios, but it's something we're taking into consideration. Talking about pledge levels, we'll find out sometime next week, sometime in the upcoming week, probably when this video is posted. Some expansions will include new scenarios, others don't. However, we are working to ensure we take expansion units into account with our scenario design. That's typical, that's what Rivet Wars did. It just made sure that you were able, like whatever expansion they came out in was included, or there's stuff specifically designed, but then you could technically play the expansions with whatever you might have. You don't know what expansions people have and which ones they missed out on. So that's typical for Rivet Wars design. Easy, my favorite units are the Mono-Wheel Dragoons and the Sturmrad. Those things are awesome. I agree. The Sturmrad is the great equalizer. I love it. I'm a huge, of course, Landships fan. So if I had to pick a favorite unit, I assume it would probably be the Sturmpanzer? Question mark? I also like the Ostrich, but I really like those big walkers. Jamie also clarifies, generally speaking, the characters that are not returning are the ones directly inspired by movie characters. So keep that in mind. There are a small amount of hero plugs being added to both Allies and Blight. This was in response to a question about what other units would be added. So I'm assuming this is a way of telling us that they're not adding new units to the Allies and Blight. the new units are the Nemoans. However, we have already seen a bunch of new plugs, and they're doing that on purpose to have more hero plugs in the base set to really make use of that plug mechanic. Kickstarter will run for 10 days. We talked about this. Seeing the passion of the existing fans being so excited that their favorite game is returning after so many years. Oh, what has been the most rewarding aspect of taking on the Rivet Wars design? Seeing the passion of the existing fans being so excited that their favorite game is returning after so many years. Aw, thanks, Jamie. The mission cards have become a new mechanic just called missions. This is now a completely separate second way to win the game, and is also open information to both players rather than being a secret hand of cards. You occasionally go, aha, gotcha, when you complete one. Makes sense? Yes, for scoring, see the above answer about missions. Gas effects, we're simplifying. No one owns gas tokens anymore. They all have generic damage grid, and at the start of your turn, you'll resolve any gas effects on the table, whether you place them or not. So that's something to think about. Gas tokens are being simplified, clarified, and maybe a little bit changed around to make them a little bit easier and simpler to use. That's kind of nice. Someone asked, will the previously hosted scenarios on the Rivet Wars website become available again? We have the files for them, so certainly never say never. It's best to think of Rivet Wars Reloaded as a clean slate. We're starting over and intend to do more with the game in the future. We certainly want to take care of the game's existing content and fold it into Reloaded where it makes sense. So this is an interesting answer to that question. It's basically a no. We're not just releasing all the old content that was free and available on the old website. It is a little sad, but yeah. However, they do seem to be looking at those scenarios that were hosted on the old website, including the fan-made ones, as legitimate content that could be grandfathered into the new scenarios. This means that if you were a creator of one of those scenarios that were hosted on the old website, it is very possible they were looking at that content and might be considering grandfathering that into the Kickstarter or into, well, not the Kickstarter, I mean into like the base set or one of the scenarios they have, or into future projects. This is really cool. Like, this is a really cool thing. This is so cool. This also means that a lot of the ones that were available on there, like the one with the landing craft, never say never to the future. The future of Rivet Wars is crazy open-ended. Like, never say never. Oh boy, I am running out of battery. We need to get through this stuff immediately. Changes to secret mission cards was talked about. He says there's probably more changing than adding. We don't want to bloat the game's rules with unnecessary complexity. The Nemoans will bring their own special rules to the table. So yes, I'm assuming this is into, are you adding additional rules or additional stuff? So I guess the Nemoans will be a little bit of a game changer in and of themselves. Kind of the way Battle of Brighton is. They'll probably come with their own rule book to talk about how they are changing the game. Tabletop simulator version, they said, yes indeed, we fully intend to make it public during the live campaign for people to play with. This means from September 6th to September 16th, there will be a tabletop simulator version of Rivet Wars Reloaded that people can play with and try to do stuff with. I'm gonna have to call out of work to make sure I have enough time to play with you guys, to play with people from the community, to play with maybe they'll let us play with people from Steamforged Games, and of course my own friend group to try out the game. We'll try to make content. Oh, I'm gonna have to call out. Like, I have to do that. Oh man, I hope it's available so I can get all the downloads done on day one. Oh man, I'm so excited. I really hope that they leave it available after the launch, at least for a little bit, like during development. So that people can continue to try it out, try new things, give feedback on game mechanics. things of that nature, while it's still being developed and like in processing, so that when there is time to change it, it can be changed. But we'll just see. We'll see. I'm so excited. I really hope Steamforge Games, please do a tabletop simulator version so that I will buy it. So this helps me play with people in the community. This helps me play with people across great distances. This lets me play with people who are fans in the UK. This lets me play with people who are fans in California. This would be a great thing. I would love this. Please let me buy it. Tabletop Simulator app will not cost money. And it was originally built to demo for influencers and reviewers. But there's no guarantee that we'll do more with it in the future. But again, never say never. Yes! Don't make never say never be a no. Please! Please say yes. I will buy it. Let me buy it. Please. Even if you just use your 3D renders and not you didn't have to make special models for it. Please let us do this and play the game on Tabletop Simulator. Please! Are there new terrain elements under design for the new game? We looked at that and decided we didn't need to for now. However, feel that using different combinations of tile sizes allows you to create pseudo-new terrain types. For example, if you connect two large tiles with one or more tiles with a single square on them, you've just created a bridge. Yep, I just played a game like this, so we will talk about that in a video in the future. Alright, the bases for minis will stay brown. This is based off some of the prototype images we saw, where everything was blue and everything was red. I asked this question if this was going to be consistent with the new design. No, the models are the new colors. The bases will still stay brown. This is a plus for me. It's a small plus. It would have been a small negative in the other way, or a small eh. It really isn't that big of a deal, but it is a small plus for me. Damage markers are changing. I don't have a lot of battery. I have to push forward. Damage markers are changing. He says we use die cut tokens to mark damage in Rivet Wars Reloaded, particularly since so few units have more than 1 health. I don't know how I feel about this. Honestly, I like the old damage marker system. My reasoning is because in custom scenarios, the game is so customizable. You can do different things. And they had blue markers for buffs. You could, in theory, you do all manner of creations. Yes, so many units only have 1 health, but adding damage markers to said units that only have 1 health, you can now mark different things. Maybe you can say, oh, these units have disadvantage, these units have special advantages now, because you can see that these ones are marked differently. You can do a bunch of stuff with custom scenarios with them. You can buff units with the blue, with those characters. The dogs, one of the dogs buffs units with the blue, and you can put that on there. You can show so many different things if you had different colors. Again, they only had red and blue. You could have green, you could have yellow, you could do so many different things. You can now have them mean different things. There was just so much customizability you could do, even though so many units only had 1 health. So why do they have all these damage marker spots? You could do a lot with those damage marker spots. This is a little bit of a negative to me. Now, we don't know what, to be honest, I'm not fully sure what die cut damage markers means. So I could be wrong. There could still be so much we could do with them, but for not knowing what that means, this makes me feel like this is a negative. For me, personally, for the reasons I'd given. There's so much customizability and different, unique stuff you could do with damage markers and buff markers, even though, for instance, my friend who loves dogs. Each handler can only have 1 dog spawned associated to them at a time. So you can have multiple handlers and multiple dogs, but how do you keep track who's who? If dogs die, whose dog was it? So could you have 2 handlers in the back and 1 handler in the front, and then you just spawn all the dogs from that handler and get them out sooner? Meanwhile, you still have 2 in the back, so you can have 3 dogs out at a time. So what we did is, depending on the combination of damage markers on the handler, the dog would share the same damage markers. Both units only have 1 health, but now we have a way of connecting this dog with this handler, this dog with this handler, so that we kept track of that. This is what I'm talking about. There's so many creative usages for damage markers and buff markers that aren't straight up how much health they have. I really want this changed. This would be like a 2-point negative for me if you go forward with it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm still super excited for the game, but this is a 2-point negative for me. I asked about novelizations, if they would be open to that idea. I like to write. I do a lot of write. I've already done a lot of fan fiction. If they were open to the idea, I would start work on a Rivet Wars novel for their approval today. I also talked about if they're planning more comic things, or if all their art is just for the game material and that's that. Sadly, we got the answer of they're just focusing on the game. They do have a comic strip available for viewing right now, and he gives a link, but he's like, they're just for the game, just for game material, that's all we're focusing on. Of course, there's a never say never, but he's like, that's all we're focusing on for now. Sadly, that means I don't think I'm ever going to get greenlit to do a Rivet Wars novel. I don't think that's ever going to be approved. They're a game company, they have a game IP, and they're going forward. I don't think there will ever be a book or movie IP to do anything future with that if you wanted to. So sadly, don't be on the lookout for that. I guess this would be my pitch. If you're open to what that would mean or an idea for it, please let me know. I would start working on a Rivet Wars novel right now to get approved by you and all that stuff, but if that's something you're even open to, I would start working on that now. I really have wanted to do that for a long time, but I've never really connected with Ted on that. I would be very open to write a Rivet Wars novel and get it approved and edited and all that kind of stuff by you guys going forward. I asked about roundups of the Q&A, if there'll be any official roundups or videos or ways to press it elsewhere, and he said that he's not personally doing that or knowing, but he said never say never to that as well. I'm doing the roundup, or trying my best. I'm so sorry, we are gonna have to skip most of these ones. Bunch of personal ones that were great, asked by Decar. Oh, he said, and I'm going to quote here, we briefly considered rolling out a D8 dice system for all dice things in the game. Before we decided that the D6 dice system just worked so well and it needed to stay, and also worked better for backwards compatibility. However, deviations are now on a D8 system, not deviation cards at the bottom of action cards. This is interesting. This is cool. I would say this is a bonus to me. It's also one of the minor changes probably to action cards, is they will no longer have deviations because it's no longer a deviation flip. So we will see how that goes. He says, we kept scoring on strategic objectives more or less the same, but we felt there was work to be done on how the language was presented in the rule book, so hopefully it's easier to pick up and learn. You are constantly right. Even some of my really older first videos might be wrong on how this is handled. In the end, if you're interested, the community basically decided that the easiest and simplest way to do the capture and hold mechanic is at the end of your turn, count the flags. That's it. Well, count your flags and that's it. The end of your turn. That way, you're rewarded for capturing them during your turn, and at the end of your next turn, you're rewarded for holding them. You're not punished for going second or rewarded for going first in the game. You don't need to worry about initiative of changing first, second thing in the whatever, and it's just easy. At the end of your turn, count your flags, and you get those points. I'm pretty sure that's what the rules intended. It keeps things fast-paced, and again, it doesn't punish people for going second, or it doesn't reward people for going second, and because then they have an entire turn to take them back and then get rewarded for holding them. And it keeps things fast-paced. You can get points pretty quickly doing it this way. So I think that will be the direction they go, but we won't know until we see the rules. The campaign mode is a narrative-driven and the story is important to the future of Rivet Wars Reloaded. So the story is going to be important to hinting at what they're going to be doing in the future. There are 6 scenarios in the core box campaign. We enjoy a sort of waterfalling scenario of campaign, where the person who loses a scenario may get a slight advantage in the following one. That's letting you lost, so to ensure that that doesn't compound and keep snowballing, you get a little bit of a boost in the next game to kind of give you a little bit of an edge to try to prevent you losing 2 in a row or 3 in a row or 4 in a row. I think the term he was looking for is rubber banding, unless there's another industry term for waterfalling I haven't heard. Snowballing is the opposite of rubber banding. Snowballing is you won the last game, so you get a bonus in this game going into it. So you're still like clean slate, new campaign, new scenario to go on with the story, but to reward you for winning the last one, you'll get a boost, and that will give you an edge in this one. So it's a snowballing effect where you simulate in World War I gaining ground and continuing to gain ground while it becomes more and more important for the other team to stop you. We'll see what the campaign is. We'll see what happens as the story moves on in one way or another. Oh my god, woo! I think we made it. I think we made it. Edited my outro. I did a rushed outro. Thank you guys for watching, because I made it to the end. Edit to my old outro. We're done. I am really about to lose battery, so I'm going to take this chance to put in an outro right here, even though I'm going to try to get to whatever is left. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do check out links down below to the 2 Q&A place. Read his verbatim words, read the verbatim questions, and decide for yourself. Remember that this is through the Nate filter, so it can go either way. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more Rivet Wars content and steampunk stuff here on the channel. Kickstarter link down below. You will see the Kickstarter. Follow for stuff. Remember, Kickstarter September 6th through September 16th. Only 10 days, and the Nemoans are Kickstarter exclusive. That is your only chance. 10 days, and it's less than a week away. Oh, I'm sorry, it is a week away. It is a week away. So go. Why are you watching this? Go follow the Kickstarter. Also, links to all the Rivet Wars communities down below. We got a Discord, we got the official Facebook group, we got a Reddit, we got all this stuff. So it's all links down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!